Mississippi's governor just said something that should make you pause. I have yet to see a fact or piece of evidence that suggests any foul play. That's Governor Tate Reeves, the state's top elected official, on the record, backing local investigators in a case that is, right now, actively headed to a grand jury. Read those two facts back to back. A grand jury doesn't get assembled for cases with nothing to look at. So which one is it? Is the governor right that there's nothing here? Or is a grand jury already looking at something he hasn't seen yet? That's not even everything that broke this week. There's 911 audio of the exact moment the boat left Horn Island without Nolan, a mechanical failure caught on tape that finally puts real minutes and coordinates on an afternoon this case has argued about for 2 weeks. We're covering all of it. Stay with us. If you're new here, we've covered this case from day one. Hit subscribe now so you don't lose the thread. And if this update helps you understand what's actually happening, drop a like. It tells us to keep digging. Now, let's start with the governor. Nearly 2 weeks into this case, no statewide official had said a word about it publicly. That changed Wednesday. Asked directly at a press conference, Governor Reeves said he personally knows Sheriff John Ledbetter, hasn't spoken to him about this specific case, but has full confidence he'll do his job. He said Department of Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tyndall has been in contact with investigators and that he's confident the sheriff's office and DA will do what's necessary if there has been foul play. That's the state's top office on the record, backing the same local investigators the family's own attorneys have questioned for 2 weeks straight. Here's a question worth sitting with, and we genuinely want to know what you think. Does "I haven't seen evidence of foul play" sound like confidence in a closed case, or like someone hedging carefully while a grand jury is still forming? Drop your take in the comments. We read every one, and some of the sharpest theories on this case have come from viewers, not headlines. The same day, Mississippi's House of Representatives, meeting in a special session Reeves himself had called for an unrelated youth court law, paused to honor Nolan directly. Representative Henry Zuber told the chamber he'd met Nolan a few times through football and called him the young man that was taken way too early from us. The House closed that day's session with a formal motion of adjournment in his memory. 2 very different kinds of state recognition on the same day, one cautious and procedural, one personal and unguarded. And the governor's caution runs straight into the one piece of hard data investigators now actually have.
Here's something new this week that finally puts a timeline on that afternoon. Audio obtained by NBC News captures the boat's operator calling for help. "Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come? I want to get this boat unsank and towed back." That call came in around 4 p.m., a mechanical failure, not a decision to abandon anyone. When the dispatcher asked if everyone on board was okay, the caller answered yes, everybody was on board. Everybody except Nolan, who had already told his friends he'd catch a ride back later with someone else after meeting a girl on the island that day. GPS data from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, obtained by CBS News, backs up the shape of that timeline. The boat left its dock at 9:56 that morning and reached Horn Island at 11:14. It left the island again at 4:31 that afternoon without Nolan and returned to its original dock. From there, it moved into Fort Bayou around 5:52. Back to the dock by 6:06, then to a boat launch at 7:19 that evening, before being towed by land to the boat owner's home in Biloxi. Track that timeline against everything else in this case. A boat with engine trouble, leaving without one passenger who chose to stay. hours of movement afterward that investigators can now map almost minute by minute. None of it on its own proves anything sinister, but it's the first time this exact sequence has had real data behind it instead of just conflicting accounts. And that girl Nolan reportedly stayed behind for? ABC News says it has attempted to reach her directly. Investigators say they're working through interviews with everyone who was with Nolan that day, or who may have spoken to him. But as of this recording, she hasn't spoken publicly, and nothing confirms what, if anything, she's told investigators. Now back up one more week to the piece of evidence that started a lot of this. One clip has haunted this case since it surfaced: raised voices, an argument. Attorney Ben Crump told Good Morning America the voice was Nolan's, saying, "Give me my freaking phone. What are you freaking doing?" Trayston Shepard, a close friend who was there that day, says that's not what happened. His words, "That's the video I am referring to, and that's me yelling." Shepard says he was waist-deep in the water, having a disagreement with his own girlfriend, when Wells walked by and made a comment about it. That's the exchange on the recording. Not Nolan in a confrontation, but Nolan, alive and unbothered, ribbing his friend about an argument that had nothing to do with him. It's not the only account, though. Another friend, Javon Williams, has pushed back on Shepard's version, too, telling TMZ the audio sounded too clear to have come from that far away on land, and that it reminded him of a separate argument that broke out on one of the boats. Two friends, two different explanations for the same few seconds of audio. Here's what that tells you. This isn't a solved mystery. It's a case where even the people who were physically there don't fully agree on what a 10-second clip actually captured.
Here's another thing that's been misunderstood. FBI Jackson issued a formal statement this week, and it's worth hearing exactly what it says, not what people assumed it says. The Bureau confirmed it has assisted with certain aspects of the investigation, where federal tools and partnerships proved useful. But it also said clearly the Jackson County Sheriff's Office is leading and will continue to lead the investigation. That's not a federal takeover. That's not the story some headlines implied. It's a local department getting backup where it needs it while staying in charge. Small distinction, big difference in what it actually means for how this case moves forward. Now the part that actually is a turning point. On Wednesday, Christine and Elmore Wansley sat down with Jackson County District Attorney Angel Myers-Malkorath. Attorney Ben Crump called it a respectful meeting. Here's what came out of it. Once the sheriff's investigation wraps, everything gathered goes in front of a grand jury. Sit with that for a second. 2 weeks ago, this was being described as a suspected accidental drowning, no evidence of a crime. Today, there's an actual legal mechanism in motion. A grand jury doesn't guarantee charges, but it means someone with legal authority is going to look at every piece of evidence and decide whether this warrants prosecution. That's not nothing. That's the furthest this case has moved since it started. And there's a reason both sides just agreed to something that could shape exactly what that grand jury sees. Crump confirmed the family and investigators agreed to a mutual inspection of Nolan's phone, meaning experts for the family and experts for the state examine the device together, side by side. Attorney Eric Hertz is leading that effort for the family. Why does this matter so much? Because this phone has been the center of every theory in this case. Crump has said for weeks the family located it themselves through a tracking app instead of being told where it was. Messages had been deleted by the time they got it back. Former Judge Carlos Moore has pointed to this exact phone as the basis for what he believes is an already provable theft charge. A joint inspection means neither side can credibly say the other tampered with it, hid something, or handled it wrong. In a case this fractured on trust, that might be the one process both sides can actually agree happened fairly, whatever it ends up showing. Here's what investigators are still fighting against: A photo, allegedly from a pool party, is circulating online, separate from the beach video, separate from Horn Island entirely. Crump's own team reposted it, not because they've confirmed what it shows, but to draw out more witnesses. That's a deliberate strategy. Cast a wide net. Let the public help fill the gaps investigators haven't closed. It's also exactly the kind of thing that can spiral into more of what just happened with the video in Chapter 1. We're going to keep saying this every episode because it needs saying every episode. An unverified photo is not evidence. It's a lead at best, and sometimes it's just noise. Case in point, a separate photo supposedly showing Nolan at a July 5th pool party has already been debunked. It was actually taken weeks earlier in Pass Christian. One detail slipped past most coverage this week. Nolan's funeral was originally expected at the Mississippi Coast Coliseum and Convention Center. That's no longer where it's happening. Officials confirmed the family is, quote, going in a different direction. The service is now set at Center Point Church in Ocean Springs, Monday. Visitation from 9 to 11 a.m., funeral immediately after. A celebration of life follows at the Jackson County Fairgrounds. No public explanation has been given for the venue change. It could be as simple as a family wanting something more personal than a convention center for their son's final service. It could be logistics. What we can tell you honestly is we don't know, and neither does anyone reporting on this publicly. We're not going to guess at a grieving family's reasons for you. What we do know is this: Reverend Al Sharpton will officiate, Tyler Perry is still covering the cost, and Ben Crump still hasn't set a firm date for the independent autopsy results. He said Friday's target was missed due to flight delays transporting Nolan's body, and now says only that he hopes to share results soon. Let's lay out exactly where this stands. No speculation, no filler. Nolan Wells was last seen alive around 3 p.m. on July 4th on the northwestern tip of Horn Island, telling friends he'd catch a ride back later after meeting a girl there. GPS data confirmed the boat he arrived on left the island at 4:31 p.m. without him, following a reported mechanical failure. A National Park Service ranger found his body 2 mornings later in the water off that same stretch of coastline. Cause of death still undetermined. Both a state and independent autopsy remain pending. The viral confrontation video has 2 conflicting explanations from 2 friends who were there. Neither account has Nolan in an actual altercation. Governor Tate Reeves has now spoken publicly for the first time, backing local investigators and saying he hasn't seen evidence of foul play. The FBI has clarified its role as support, not takeover. Jackson County remains in charge. The case is headed to a grand jury once the sheriff's investigation concludes. A mutual side-by-side inspection of Nolan's phone has been agreed to by both sides. A separate photo used to suggest Nolan was at a party the next day has already been debunked. And the funeral, now confirmed for Monday at Center Point Church, is happening before either autopsy has produced an answer. No one has been charged. No one has been named a suspect by law enforcement. Say that again with us, because it's the one sentence that keeps this whole case honest. Nobody has been charged with anything.
So, where does this actually go from here? 3 things are moving in parallel right now, and any one of them could be the next real turning point. The independent autopsy results, whenever Crump's team finally releases them. The state's toxicology results, which can take weeks, and whatever the grand jury eventually sees once Jackson County closes out its investigation. Any one of those could change this case overnight. We're not going to pretend to know which one breaks first, but we're going to be here when it does.
Nolan Wells was an 18-year-old who baked his parents' salmon the night before a holiday, told his mother he loved her, and went out on the water with friends the same way thousands of other teenagers did that same afternoon. On Monday, his family buries him, still without a cause of death, but with a grand jury in motion, a joint phone inspection underway, the state's governor now on record, and one piece of viral misinformation finally put to rest. A quick note before you go. This case involves details some viewers may find disturbing, including a young life lost and unresolved questions around how. If you'd rather not continue, we understand completely, and we'll see you on the next one. If you're still with us, subscribe, hit that like button, and let us know in the comments where in the world you're watching from. And we mean this genuinely. Tell us what you think is actually going on here. Do you buy the mechanical failure? Does the governor's statement sit right with you? Your theories and your reactions are half of what makes this community worth showing up for every episode. Share this with someone who's been following this case too. We'll bring you the facts the moment we have them and not one moment before.